Hey, I'm Patty Wilson. In my meeting, Veterans Day Parade, and had to get all that done. It's going really well. I got all my sponsorships. My job is done except for showing up. So I'm super excited about that because I kept breathing like heavy during the meeting. I was like, I don't know why I'm so invested in this trial, but I was so invested in it. So I took some notes when I was in the courtroom today. And like, what would be the reason? Like, obviously, like the convoluted story, but what were some of the details that Charlie spewed out to Georgia that might have maybe transferred some jurors to maybe to absolutely? And I had lunch with a gal and she felt the same way. She kind of thought it was maybe. She's a younger girl. She wants to go to law school and she really thought she wanted to be a defense attorney. And now she's like, no, I want to be a prosecutor. But she was like 70, 30, maybe a little less guilty. She had doubts, but she said until she heard Georgia, then she kind of placed it all together, because everything is so piecemeal. And then it's just one big nice pizza. So she said when she heard Rashbaum's closing, she said that was it. So my thoughts about that were, so there was that 48-hour thing. So the one question that Charlie had for Donna after the bump was that the one question he didn't ask her. Remember, Catherine's was supposed to be like, we need this money in 48 hours. He'd never asked Donna, when do they need the money? So that 48-hour window, like if I don't get the money, they're going to shoot me in the head, is kind of like not real anyway, which we know. The landline thing, I think, was a bigger deal than Rashbaum even remotely tried to downplay. And one other thing I thought Georgia could have, or the phone guy maybe, how many times a day do you call your mother? Like in the normal frame of time, like normal life, before October 31st, 2013. How many times did he call his mother every day versus after those months and months and months of planning this murder? How often did he call his mother? And like I said, that mentor, deep dive lawyer, that YouTube podcast, he does skits. It's very on point. He said that, where did he put it? Oh, when he looked up all the data, because he went through the case file and evidence before, because it's expensive. So I guess he paid for it. But it was 25 calls in one day. Like, do you really call your mother 25 times a day? If my kid called me 25 times a day, I'd be driving up to Pennsylvania to see what the hell's wrong with her. And he continued to sleep with Katie. Doesn't make any sense. And Rashbaum brought up, like, why did she need a babysitter if she was just picking up money and leaving? I'm like, she had a babysitter because she was screwing the guy. She was screwing the doctor. She was screwing him. That's why she needed a babysitter, Rashbaum. He looked pissed. Like, he was like, you've just ruined my career. And justifiably so. If he thought he was going to go into criminal law, he needs to not do that. So the other mistake that Rashbaum made, which I couldn't believe it was up there for a long time, was that map. If you watch Court TV or you watch any of the YouTubers, like Surviving the Survivor, he kept that map of Wendy's travels down from Aqua Ridge Way to Trescott almost the last half of his closing. He didn't take it down. And then the other graphic he had with the pieces of the puzzle, and Charlie's the only one not in it, but he left all the other pieces together. Like, whoever did his graphics was should be fired and reassigned to janitorial work. Whoever said that was a good idea. I'm going to go back to it again. Georgia could have asked the question, Lewis, can you read? Can you read English? No, I'm illiterate. Then how did you know the address of the professor? Lewis had it. And a photo. People. He really does have hubris. Like he keeps, the whole Georgia kept hitting the untouchable. He really did. And when they read that verdict, I must have watched it like just 20 times before I came on here. He was shocked. Like he turns to Rashbaum and he says, it's only been 2 hours. Like you could see his lips. And Rashbaum's like, yeah. And then he started getting sick. And then that was it. But I think other than that, he was really shocked. I think he thought he was done. They said the relocation had no impact. Like people really cannot believe that. Her case file, like I was drinking a soda. I'm not kidding you. The binder of Wendy's, I didn't know they made them this wide. The binder of Wendy's divorce and child support was that wide. It had to have been 2.5 reams of paper. I wanted to take a picture of it, but I didn't want to get kicked out. Okay, so Wendy learned someone made that argument. Oh, they were talking about Wendy. Like, when did she learn? She learned it right on the stand. That was such a lie. He continued to date and sleep with Meg Benoit. Oh. Rachel brought up a great point. When Jeff Lacoste reported this whole situation to the police, he said a Cuban because Charlie said a Cuban in the hot tub. Rashbaum tried to be like, they weren't even Cuban. But how would Jeff Lacoste have known? The whole thing. I think that's it. Yeah, so Cuban was reported to the police, and then Georgia let loose today that it was before anyone had been identified. And then she made a comment to, I think, the press after the verdict was read that said Charlie was always on their blotter. Then she said, stay tuned. So I don't know what you think. I think Donna's next. And I think Wendy's going to have a very difficult sleep. And I'm really curious, like her billionaire sponsor, that hires her to help her do that part-time immigration crap that she does. I'm dying to know, like, if he's still going to stick by her or does he think she's guilty? That fool, that Rashbaum, kept that graphic up of all the little purple lines driving down Aqua Ridge, the whole way down Centerville Road. It's like 9 miles total from her house. So she was like 7.2 miles out of the way. He kept that slide up. Not that did it, but it certainly didn't hurt. I mean, didn't help hurt the jurors. It didn't help his case. I still cannot believe. I think I'm going to sit down and dream about that guy's look on his face. That juror that was dismissed. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, man. We were all just like, they didn't change the rules and make someone else an alternate because those three were closest to the door. And I didn't get to see the jury verdict like in person, so I don't know who the juror was, but one of the other court watchers says, like I said, there were techie guys in the front. There were some techie guys that had like this, you remember the Office Space? Kind of like that, where they had like short sleeve dress shirts and the tie and just kind of, one of those in the front row was the foreman. So I don't know what he did for a living, but I'm very curious. So I study all that personality stuff. Like, are you driven? Are you like influential? Are you like a steady kind of person? Or are you cautious? I'm the cautious, driven. So I'm like ready to jump off a bridge. And then halfway down, I'm like, should I have thought more about it? My life is very hard. This is hard to be the DC in the world. But anyway, that was it. That's all I got. I don't have any more notes. Let me see. I don't see anything. Oh, the most important thing, like, okay, so you probably already saw that Georgia stepped aside to speak to the family, and they weren't going to do a victim impact statement contemporaneously. So they must not have believed it, that would happen. They weren't prepared. And so now the sentencing is going to be 12/12. So I'm going to declare my comment. I think it'll be very brief. I think it's a mandatory life in prison. I don't think he's going to turn on his mama or his sister to get a better. I don't think he's going to. I don't even know that they'll take it. Like, I don't know if they'll be like, hey, baby. I think they have a lot more data than any of us know. I think they have thousands of calls, and they just kind of picked what they wanted to make their case today. And I really don't think the Markels thought it was going to happen because they weren't prepared. I think, can you imagine? For 10 years, you got to take it on the chin. You can't really talk. You're in another country. You can't disparage them. You want to see your grandbabies. And in the end, you've still only seen them 3 times. That's it, 3 times. They've changed the last name. They changed one of the middle name. I don't know what the family name was. Might have been like Aaron. Like, I was trying to go back and figure out what the family names were that boy could have been. I don't know. But imagine taking it on the chin for that 10 years and not being able to say a word. And then you're sitting in the jury, like in the gallery. I get it confused. The gallery. And if your watch beeps and you're taken out. That fool gets to sit there, but you have to walk out for a little bit. And you walk out with grace. You walk out with a smile on your face, basically. Like, I'm going to do what I'm told because I'm going to get this. I'm going to get through this with my family. And she comes back in. And also with grace. The amount of grace this family has. But I was doing my research today. I'm still working on which Adelson that was. I think Donna had a sister, and I'm working on it. So I'll let you know. But now what? Like, I have to think of something else to talk about. Because this is fun. This is like, talk to myself for a half hour. So tomorrow morning, 7:15 Eastern Daylight Savings Time, because that's where we're at. It's dark at 5:30 in Florida. We get a little bit more daylight here than like Upper East Coast, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be on the radio with Greg Tish, who's my radio show producer, but he has a morning show. So he has a Facebook Live that's always on every day called The Greg Tish Show. And it's around 7:30, 7:45. I'm going to go in. Fancy Fiction's going to be on because she's from Tallahassee. And I believe attorney Tim Jansen is going to, I don't know if he's calling in or going to be there, but I'll find out. But anyway, I hope you listen. If not, you can go back to the Greg Tish Show and rewatch and listen to Fancy Fiction's take. Her take is a lot, probably more educated about this whole trial thing than mine is. So I'm excited to hear what she had to say. She definitely bristles. She's got grit, that little thing does. She has grit. She doesn't take, I mean, she just calls you out. So if you haven't seen it, you follow her on Instagram. Fancy Fiction called out that Brianna, because Brianna Price was his baby mama who was getting child support. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with that poor child, but he's only 5. And then I was driving back from my Veterans Day parade, and I drove past 2116 Truscott. It's all dark and quiet on that street, just calm. It always is. It's a calm street normally. And it's dark and cool, and I have my windows down in my truck, and you're just driving and just think, man, it's just such a shame. But then I thought, I don't know what made me think about it, but I was like, Charlie's son is 5. He's had his father longer than the Markel boys, who were 3 and 4 at the time. So it's all a waste. Oh, and I met this lady this evening. I won't mention what she does or her name, but she asked me about my deep, like trying to breathe. And I said, well, I was at the Adelsons trial. She said she was from Miami. And I said, did she follow it? She goes, I had no time for that. It's okay. I'm respectful. Like, I'm a libertarian. So whatever you want, it's fine. And then she went on to say, she goes, they already have the killers. I don't even know why we're bothering. Think of the cost of these trials. It's one way to look at it. And the other way to look at it is this woman and this man and this sister lost their brother. What does that cost? What was he worth to the university? What was he worth to the Jewish community? What was he worth to all the students that he was teaching? I said that to her and shut up. So, she didn't care. I mean, there's more to it than cost. We're going to spend money on dumb stuff. We might as well spend money on good stuff. And this was a good thing today. The air in Tallahassee smelled so much cleaner. It's been a lot for 9.5 years for this family, for the community, for the gal I sat next to in the trial, who was friends with Danny, who had Danny and Wendy to her home in Monticello. And she said, Wendy was despicable at my home. And I said, nothing was ever good enough for her, was there? And she said, no. She was horrible to Danny. She was horrible. And I said, and I asked her, did she ever want to share those boys? Was she upset that they loved her, Danny, equal or more than her? And she said it was more. Those boys lit up and could not wait for their father to come home. Mm-hmm. And she was crying when they showed Danny photo that we've all seen where he's standing against the pole, his headshot. They showed that. And then after they got done, they kind of faded it out. But in between that, they had a photo of his head laying on a slab. And it was swollen on one side. She obviously had not been at the trial or any of the trials, so she had not seen it. And she was crying. And I was like, you cannot cry. You cannot cry. You can't cry. So I just was like rubbing her arm to help her. And she's just like, I hope he rots. Like, nothing will make me happier. And she was so stoic when she was sitting there. And then all of a sudden she saw that poor little man's, I mean, he's a tall guy, like swollen head. And she's like, he was Danny. She said, and I said, well, don't watch it now. But if you ever watch that Wendy interrogation, hear her talk about how he had no friends, that he was mean. And she goes, he had 1 million friends. And she said, and Danny was the kind of guy that when you spoke to him, you were the only person in the room. But he did not appreciate the trivial. And I believe that Wendy was the trivial. Like, her book was trivial. Her book wasn't really based, it was really just Dear Diary. I'm complaining about being in Tallahassee. It wasn't perspective other than herself. And I think he kind of knew that deep down. I don't know. But she left and she did not stay for the whole thing. And I hope that she has some relief tonight. And I hope she reaches out to the family, because when I pointed out Danny's sister to her, she started to tear up too, because she knew how important she was to Danny. They were so close. So that being said, I'm going to just go off and finally go home and get ready for the radio tomorrow and just say a prayer for the Markels. Oh, so I went back. I think I was going to say it and I got just like completely like, where do I have to be in 20 minutes? And Ruth Markel, when I looked up their, I got to learn how to use the file thing on StreamYard. But I looked up Danny and Wendy's marriage announcement. And in it, it had like a little bio. So it said that it was, I guess it's a New York Times thing, but they talk about where the husband's from and the parents are from. But Mrs. Markel wrote 2 other books about women in business. So I immediately got on Amazon and bought them. Very excited. So maybe we'll talk about that. But she talked about how women should succeed in business. And then Mr. Markel did clothing distributor. He was a clothing distributor in Canada. So it was very cool. I can't wait to read the book. I think I'm gonna read those a lot sooner than I'll read her book. It's really hard. I don't know. I have to like sit down and have a clear frame of mind. But you guys have a great evening. Love your family. If you're going through a contentious divorce, please just take a deep breath. The kids do grow up, and the kids do need to see that you're emotionally healthy. It probably took me till I was about 50, but in the end, it all worked out. So, have a great evening. Thanks for watching, and let me know if I can answer any questions for you. Bye-bye.